Reducer is a very important concept in React.js. If you are building a large scale app, you might need to share state between multiple components. And one of the efficient way to share state between components is using Reducer. In Redux framework, Reducer is heavily used with either Redux Thunk or Redux Saga. However, in this video, we're gonna see the use of reducer in a plain React.js component. We can extend this component later if required. But first question we want to ask is, what is a reducer? So in simple term, a reducer is a function that takes two inputs, the current state and an action, and it will return the state of the current existing component. Is a fundamental concept used in managing state in application, especially as I mentioned, Redux in React app. So why we use reducer? Um, there are different approaches when we develop a front-end applications, and reducer is basically used mostly when we want to have our state in a predictable way in the application and defining how the state will gonna change in response to an action. You can click a button or you can input some data into a input field, and we want to maintain all those control how we gonna change our state, and that's when reducer is very helpful. Also, a lot of the time we want to debug our state, and each component can have its own state, and merging all the state together to send some data to backend reducer is also helpful. Having a global state that can manage all of your data to send the API call, thus also reducer can be helpful. Here is a example in given in React.dev where they show a signature of the use reducer. They said that reducer takes the first argument as a reducer as well as initial argument which return the state. And we also have a dispatch, and dispatch is nothing but a callback function that we can pass all the data with it. And in the dispatch, we can pass the type of the data, like what does it do. It can be any constant variable. It's up to our use cases. It's just a design pattern that we can follow. We can pass some data with it. Also, we can pass anything almost, whatever we want to. Now, here is a good example. We have a reducer as a function, and we have a use reducer and takes the first argument as the reducer, which has first as state as well as first second parameter as action, and initial value set to age 42. And in this example, the similar approach is used. Whenever we have a button click, we dispatch a method type increment age, and in our action reducer, what we do if the action type is increment age, which is this, we increase the age by 1, and we are able to use the state directly in here to print the age. So if I click every time, we increase the age. The similar concept we can use to any applications. Now, if you think about it, we could keep this in anywhere in our application, and this state should be accessible to anywhere in your application because we can just pass it alone anywhere we want. We can export the function, we can export whatever we want to from it. Let's talk about a more complicated use cases. So here we have a type, we have an increment age as well as we have changed name. What we are doing is we have two cases where each time we change different data. Now, one thing to talk about here is we don't want to mutate the existing state. We always want to send the current state. In that case, what we are doing is for the name, we are sending the existing name. For age increment, we are adding +1, as well as similar cases for change name. We want to change the name, but we don't want to change the age, so we keep it same. In the dispatch state, whenever we click increment age, we send type, as well as change name, we send another type. Now, as I mentioned, state is read only. You cannot modify directly like this. State age equal to age +1. We always want to return a new object, which is a good practice. Now, this is the example. We can change age, as well as we can change the name. Now, another thing is we don't want to recreate our state every time, right? Now, here is one of the example. We can create initial state, and that can be a function, as well as, although here is another example. We have a username initially, and we can create an initial state from it. So here is one of the example that is using that. We have a to-do example where we show the input as well as a button to add this. Now in the state, we are looping through all the data, and then we are returning the data. Now, if we look at our reducer function, we have reducer, username, as well as create initial state. Username is just a variable for us, but at the same time, if I expand, it's probably more clear. Now we just get the username as a username, which is passed directly from the function where it is rendered. And we are creating the initial state. Now, if we look at the initial state, it has the username here. That's the beauty of it. Now we can just append with username plus task with the index ID. That way we can create random all the username. And at the same time, we are able to dispatch everything what we want, adding to do, as well as if we want, we could change or anything. Now this is a draft cases where if we type anything, it goes as a draft, but only when we add, it add back. And in the create initial state, we are returning the draft data as empty state as well as to do initial to do. Just remember the signature, how it is returning. Draft, empty, to do's, initial to do's. Next time, when we are modifying only the to do's whenever we add button. So we say add to do, draft is getting empty, but our to do's have all the value what we need. We are using ID to get the length of existing data, and for text we are taking from the draft and we're setting that, and we are adding the existing to-dos in the list because we don't want to mutate the state. And on click we could do that, and it doesn't matter, we dispatch the option from a asynchronous function or a synchronous function that should update automatically no matter what. It's the same thing. We don't mutate the state. We only return a new state all the time. Now, this is a wrong behavior, and this is a good one, because when you write this, it will automatically call at the initially. So we just bind it directly, the function. And that's pretty much in terms of how it works. Now we can implement similar concept in a small applications that will gonna help us to understand more. Let's dive into coding. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a applications. I'm using Beat for this. You can choose your own, you can choose your own favorite CLI tools, whatever you want to do. But if you want to follow across, you can use this as a template. Now this is a command line tools I have copied for BUE, which is another framework. I want React TS and my reducer app. Let's say. Now it will gonna give me a application. So if I go to my reducer app and I say yarn, it will install all the dependency. Let's wait while it is loading all the dependency and we're gonna just start the project. We can run yarn dev and open the localhost. Our app is ready. Let's start to design our app first. We're gonna open our app in VS Code. You can use your favorite editor. If you are a Beam person, go ahead. You don't now we see the source folder. We have the app tsx. We don't need any of these, and we're gonna create a new file called todos.tsx. We're gonna create our React function. I can say export default to-dos. In here we can just print our to-dos and we're gonna import it. We don't need our state. Now we have our h1 already here, which is great start. We don't need icon, logo, and state, nothing. Now this is optional. We can import or we can ignore it because this is a React function, right? You can import React from React. I found this is useful a lot of the time. Sorry, React. I found it's useful a lot of the time, but this is pretty much useful because if I want to create a function, now I can use it directly. So I don't have to always import and look for this for TypeScript support. Now we're gonna see they have a file called reducer.js. We're gonna copy the file also because the functions pretty much same. We're gonna go one by one, and since we are using TS, we can use TS. And I do prefer both, but let's use that. Now here, if you notice it, we need a type. We could just type any, or like we could just define a type. For now, let's just put any. But what the point if I can type any for the sake of the type? Let's say this is also any. Now here in the reducer, as you see, we have a task, we have an action, and if it's added, then we add the new task. However, we add the ID. Um, in our case, we're gonna use different approach. We don't pass the ID directly for edit. We're gonna say new date dot time, and that way you're gonna get in timestamp. Now this is any, I don't really care. Now let's go back. In the app, we have dispatcher as well as handle couple of these actions. We're gonna copy this. It should be here. We need to be able to import all of this. So use reducer is from React. We're gonna do that. So we're gonna say import React from React, and then we're gonna say use reducer. That helps us. The reducer we already have initial state that we can define. I thought I defined the initial state. Now we have our initial state. Now we have the task and ID. What we're gonna do is we're not gonna pass any ID whenever we add. We can say any. I wish I would rather use JSX maybe, but it's okay. Now delete. I know these are numbers, but let's agree to for the fact of. Now task list is another file we need um, to display, and for that we already have a built-in, I believe, somewhere. Task list, do we have it? We don't, pretty much. I think we don't have that example with the list. So what we gonna do is create our own, maybe. That's pretty much fine. Not a big deal. Now we can create this task list, and it will be similar as our to do. Maybe this we rename to task, and then that way we can import here. Oh, I think I am using two times. I have task as well as to do. So instead of task, I'm gonna go back to my app.ts and I have everything here. So I don't need that to do's. Now for the task list, we're gonna do a similar approach. So as we can see, our task list has 3 arguments. We're gonna need all of this. So task list, I have task on click change as well as delete, right? And this will be wrapped inside a parenthesis as a props. And this one we're gonna render it, right? Now we have this text to button as well as add task. Add task will be another one, but at least we should be able to render, right? We have a checkbox and the text. So let's add those. Now we say export default task list. Now we can do this task dot map. We can say just asking for type. Now if I define type, it can be like this: react dot fc, and we're gonna define type for all of this. Type any of string. This one will be void on delete dash. We're gonna pass a id. It's a number, but I'll pass any for now. So we have all of this. Now we have task. I'm gonna say return, and for each of these we have a input type equal to checkbox. Now we have the paragraph tag. We have from the task we have text. Now we need to wrap it inside a fragment. And we have button for update. I have another one for delete. On click, on change task, and this one also on click, on delete task. So we have everything ready here. We're gonna import that here. Task equal to task. This one is a state that we return back. Now on change, and change task, and task. On change we have the task return, which we didn't mention. Let's go back and change the signature. I should be fine. Now if we go back to our JS, okay, somewhere we have defined a wrong thing. I don't know why it is. Let's search here. So we have all the tasks. If you notice, we have checkbox, delete button, as well as everything. Now this could be really improved with some CSS. So what we can do in here, we can do div first name task list, and in our CSS can just add a task list. Display flex shown. We each is a column. I was okay. What's wrong? Things is to be wrong. Okay, we didn't do something right. Okay, here div key. So we need a key. Oh, this one is wrong. I did wrong place. So this should be fine. The key. Um, key index number index um is row, I believe. Yeah. So yeah, I have button all of these as well as everything, right? Now for the button, I don't know if I have any CSS that is modifying. No, but I could make a nice button with some CSS library, but for now let's keep it as it is. Now update and delete, we need to be able to add some events, right? Now however, if you see on change or delete, we should be able to get to the reducer automatically because we have binded those events. Like whenever we from the list which hit the task change, we should set the current state as well as whenever we click on delete, it should go back to our delete method where we have the delete task, right? Which dispatch the task reducer. Now I'm not sure why it's not going, so let's investigate on that. So if we click on delete, it doesn't do anything. Now first thing first, we need to check is are we sending the method, right? So for that, here is the thing. We should send the ID. Are we sending the ID? No, you see, we are not sending the ID of this, right? So what we have to do is we send the task.id as well as on change also going to send the task based on the signature task ID as well as task. Now if we go back again, if I delete, okay, you can delete it, but if I refresh, I will have it because it's internal state. Now last part is to handle the add task as well as add input text box, right? So for that, they have a add task. I'm gonna go ahead and add that. New file, add task tsx. Now let's see the signature. On add task, I need to be able to handle the add task, which is the input data, right? Now constant ask, the signature is handle add task, on add task, sorry. Now here also I need to be able to define that type. The type we need to return is a text. So what we do is text string, right, input message type equal to text. On change, we're gonna write something here. Now, one of the thing that we miss is this one. We pass on text, but we didn't say from what type. And on change, we need to submit something. However, we need a button also, right? And on click, we're gonna say similar, but what we're gonna say in the text of this, right? So for that, we need constant text equal to text set text use state initially is empty. On change, we're gonna say e set text e dot target dot value. Now we need to wrap it with a fragment because this is the root node. Now add task required a function text, we're gonna pass this text. Now we have almost everything ready. Now we need to export default add task. Now if I go back, I should have add task. I need to pass the add task one of the handle add task. You see now how it goes. Now I don't see the button anything text, so I missed something. Yes, add this. So this, if I add, we say we have this. I can delete. Now one of the thing is update. For update, we need to be able to send something, right? Like is that doing anything, right? So for update, how does it trying to handle? Let's see. We're gonna say change and we're gonna send the task, right? And we're gonna send the value directly. However, we don't have anything function or anything to pass the data. So let's see what is the behavior. We can delete, edit. Oh, this is the inline. Then save. This is a pretty easy to implement. What you can do is the pass the checkbox data and this data together and the save, which is similar to add, which we can add. But I think I'll stop here. I hope this was useful to learn reducer and help you move on next step. Thank you.